In a minute, I am going to be joined by one of my special guests. His name is Eduardo. He is a very keen advocate who lives in Italy. He joins me now. He runs a page called Giovanni Blue on Instagram. There's no nuclear currently in Australia, but the government is working towards it. And he was at the recent New York event where the major banks of the world joined and pledged to support nuclear. So, hello, it's great.
Hi, Seth. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure, and I'm happy to be here sharing a few viewpoints on Italy and on the New York events.
Well, it's great to have you join us. I'll just ask you about the New York event. What happened? Can you give us a brief rundown of what you saw and what went down?
Yeah, of course. So, as you know, after COP28, more than 20 countries pledged to triple nuclear energy installed capacity by 2050. And that's a huge deal. But of course, this needs financing. So, the New York event was all about banks getting together with utilities, with the nuclear industry in general, and, focusing on how do we manage, how do we finance this huge thing that is tripling nuclear energy capacity by 2050. So the main thing that emerged from this meeting is that banks just don't really know how to do it. A guy from James Schaffer from Guggenheim Securities, which is one of the most important financial institutions in the world, said this very, very powerful phrase that I remember, I stick in my mind, says, financing nuclear is putting the most complex and innovative industry on the planet, which is nuclear, together with the most conservative and entities that there are in the world, which are banks. So we need to put together these two things. And as you can see, this is going to be quite a difficult deal to have. We had the banks said different things. The financial institution underlined diverse kind of issues. But one of the most important thing that emerged from this meeting in New York was that basically we lack knowledge on nuclear. Banks lack of basic knowledge on how the nuclear industry works. So banks, which as I said, are very, very keen on being careful on where to allocate risk. They're very careful on risk. They're a huge financial institution, so they want to spend their money well. And they're very scared of this enormous risk with the nuclear industry. And they don't really know how to operate in the sector. If you consider, for example, I'm from Europe, so I can give you an example on that. The EU taxonomy was launched in 2020, so it's 4 years old. Okay, and nuclear was included in the EU taxonomy just 4 years, just in 2020. So it's totally new in Europe. It's totally new in the US, and we really lack a basic knowledge. Banks lack of basic knowledge on the topic. Also, what they said is that they don't only lack of basic knowledge on the topic, but also they lack of personnel, or specialized personnel that can help them guide through the nuclear industry, the nuclear business. And that's an immense thing, really. It has never happened before. And we have this enormous thing of of tripling nuclear by 2050. So if you put together all these things, we don't have a lot of time. There's huge energy demand that is going to spike in a few years, given by, for example, data centers and all the things that is driving the energy demand. And so if you put together these factors, really, it's going to be difficult. That's what basically banks said. It's a huge football game. It's a football game that everyone wants to play. You have utilities, you have banks, you have governments, and there's a huge wall in the middle of the football field, which is made by commercial, financial, and regulatory problems. So it's like a huge football game that everyone wants to play, but with large wall in the middle. That's basically what emerged.
Yeah, well, thanks for giving me the rundown there. And I want to highlight a specific point that you brought up. Banks are the most conservative sort of entity. They're very careful about any risk that they undertake. And the fact that these huge banks globally have pledged to nuclear is just such a big thing. Do you agree?
I do agree. I do agree a lot. It is very important for banks to work closely with governments so they can be guided on a good path for financing nuclear. Because as I
Yep.
said, they're very new to this sector, and the focus on the event was really on to how to better allocate risk together, working together with governments and regulatory entities. I would like to share you one thing with you that it really is the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of the New York climate event. Do you know the Spider-Man meme? You know, when there are three Spider-Mans that point at each other, it's like, who's that? And imagine the same meme. One Spider-Man are the governments, one Spider-Man are the utilities. and one government and one Spider-Man are the banks. And they point at each other and they say, hey, the banks say to the government, I'm not going to finance the huge project if you're not going to supply me with subsidies and loans and a stable bipartisan support for the next 20 years. And then there's government which say, hey, referring to the banks, okay, I'm not gonna give you subsidies and stuff if I'm not sure that you're gonna help me through the build, financing the thing. For sure, we're not gonna leave the project if something goes wrong. And then you have utilities which are like in the middle and which say to the bank, guys, we're gonna put engineering to this, we are going to put our efforts into this, but we need both government support and financial support from bank, otherwise we're not going to do this. So it's really a Spider-Man meme kind of game. And in the middle of this triad, we have the regulatory commission. For America is the NRC, for Europe is we have Euratom and a lot more things. In Asia there's another one. So, and in the middle you have these regulatory entities which like look at each other and don't really know what to do. So it's a mess. And we don't have a lot of time. So it's a new sector, really. It's a new business, and banks needs to just develop knowledge on that.
Definitely. It's a proven technology, but working together, all those entities as a team to produce it is something that we definitely need to work on globally. I just want to ask you about Italy's move back to nuclear. What is that looking like?
That's a great question. Actually, I don't know because it's kind. No, okay, just kidding. It's kind of difficult with Italy. Italy is a very complicated country by itself. So what is happening in Italy from what I know, from my understanding, basically what we are doing is very silently, very stealthy. Imagine us as a silent nuclear submarine going underwater. We are working on building the regulatory framework for nuclear, for reintroduced nuclear. So what our ministry is doing right now is building the basic, the agency that regulates nuclear, the safety of nuclear, how to deal with the waste and everything. We are basically shaping what this new agency will be in the future. And we are rebuilding the base, the framework. That basically we're working on bureaucracy. That's what we are doing. So do not expect this government to start build on nuclear. We are not, unfortunately, going to build nuclear because simply we lack the basic bureaucracy, the basic framework, regulatory framework for that. But we are working on that, and that's very good because that's exactly what we need to work in before actually, announcing new bills and stuff. So as I said this at COP2, Will for sure remembers. I said Italy was a nuclear country, is a nuclear country, and will be a nuclear nation, even if we don't really know it. So that's the point in Italy right now.
It's fantastic that you guys are making the steps to go towards nuclear energy. That's fantastic. I just want to guide a specific question that we had on Facebook to you. Is it true that nuclear is far less weighted material than coal over 5 years of use? Or does it take more volume of coal to produce the same power?
Well, nuclear is the most energy dense source we have on the planet. 1 kilogram of nuclear contains many more millions joules of energy per volume compared to coal, gas, and everything else. If we were to make a graph, and on a small scale but realistic scale like this, we will have gas like this, we'll have coal, and then uranium will be in the stratosphere right now. So if you look at the energy density of uranium, the end of the column will reach stratosphere. So of course, there's actually absolutely no comparison between gas, coal, and nuclear, and that's a great thing also because of land footprint. Land footprint is a huge deal. It's a huge thing, especially
Definitely.
in countries like Italy, which Australia is a huge country. We do not have all the space. So for us, nuclear reactors like AP1000, EPRs, APR 1400 would be extremely powerful tool for us, because really will help us achieve decarbonization without using covering the half of the country with solar panels. And one thing I would like to say about coal, this is very interesting, almost no one knows this. Coal power plants emits much more radiation than nuclear power plants do. When you burn coal, you release ashes which are radioactive. Of course, the least problem you'll have with coal ashes is the radiation that would be that cause cancer and stuff. But coal power plants emits 3 to 10 times more radiation in the environment compared to nuclear plants. So as you said before, while you were doing the explanation.